Things that were changing in the world, the move to cloud computing.
It's a search find policy with ACL and making sure the data can easily be leveraged.
Governance is not a new concept. Multiple solutions for data cataloging were created over the last decade. So
it's getting more and more complicated to accelerate those workflows while remaining secure, of course.
Hi everybody, we are super excited to be with Matei, the Databricks CTO with us. Matei, thank you so much for taking the time today.
Thanks for having me here. Excited to chat.
Yeah, so you work on so many successful projects at Databricks. Even before Databricks, you worked with Mesos, then you did Apache Spark, MLflow, Unity Catalog, you work on GenAI also. What's your focus these days?
Yeah, I'm kind of splitting my time between two things right now. So first, I'm still spending a lot of time on Unity Catalog and governance and data sharing. There's a lot that we're building out there, and it's very important to customers to get this right. And I am also spending some time on GenAI, especially the research part of it, figuring out how to make models with better capabilities for what enterprises want.
All right, wow, awesome. Okay, so Matei, today we'd like to focus on governance within Databricks. This is becoming such a big topic in 2024 with a lot of customers. I remember a few years ago, Databricks was the Spark plus ML company. We were doing unifying data plus AI, and then came up the Lakehouse, and then now we have the modern data intelligence platform. So I was curious to see, what's the story behind it around governance? What was the vision back then when you started Databricks? Was it something you always had in mind and wanted to do, or is it something new that you see based on your customer needs?
Yeah, good question. Yeah, I mean, we always thought when we started that we could build a complete and modernized data platform for the things that were changing in the world, which was the move to cloud computing, where all your data can actually be centralized in the same data center, and you can combine all of it in different ways. And then also the rise of machine learning and data science. So we always wanted to do that, but I think at the beginning, when we were a small company, we had to focus on what are some use cases, what are some things you can do extremely well that existing data tools can't. You can't build the whole platform from day one. So there was more of a focus at the beginning of just working with whatever data people already have, rather than us, being the primary place where you put in all your data and organize it. But one of the things that we did well, and we still do really well, is large-scale ETL and data transformation. So we very soon saw all those workloads that are loading the data, and then it was natural to also build up the Lakehouse part for storage and management and governance. The other thing with governance is that the requirements have changed, and it's getting more and more complicated because there are all these sort of new regulations about data privacy, best practices people are figuring out, and new use cases such as AI. So we also realized over time that we need to build a more sophisticated solution that can support sophisticated policies, and that's what we have with Unity Catalog.
Governance is not a new concept. Multiple solutions for data cataloging were created over the last decade. So how do you define data governance in 2024?
Yeah, great question. So I think there are a few aspects to it. I think one aspect is just basically management and search of what you have. So do you know what data you have? Do you know where it came from? Because there are a lot of rules about what types of data you can use for each purpose and where it has to be located and so on. So that's one, is just basically the cataloging piece of figuring out what you have. I think a second piece you really need is the ability to implement flexible policies, because the requirements are going to change over time. You may, basically you want to make sure that you can easily adapt your use cases to any new policies as they come up. And as part of that, I think it's very important to have support for fine-grained policies like row and column level security, view level security. These are things that traditional data lake doesn't have, but something like Unity Catalog does, because it can do finer grained governance beyond just who has access to this table or this file. So these, I think, are kind of the table stakes. The other things I'd look for are whether the governance system you put in place can help people more easily work with data by helping them discover stuff, or by making it easy maybe to, when a new data set gets ingested, for it to be usable right away by people with the right permissions. And that depends a lot on how easy it is to detect and tag data with different properties, and to set sort of high-level policies that apply to the whole catalog. And that's something that a lot of customers have been asking about. They say that they want things to be more automatic.
All right, so search, the find policy with ACL, and making sure the data can easily be leveraged.
Yeah, and the search in particular, maybe I didn't say it super clearly, but I think you really need to know the provenance of it. It's not just what do I have, but where did it come from, the lineage. Does it have some constraints, like it has to stay in this geography or that geography, and what purposes is it being used for? That's another thing that's changed, is it's no longer, in many settings, it's no longer about like, oh, this user has access to this data, this one doesn't. It depends on the purpose. You can use this data for fraud detection, but not for advertising, or not for setting someone's loan rate at the bank or whatever. So that's also, so basically, yeah, it's sort of fine-grained provenance and understanding the uses of it.
So you are talking with a lot of customers and a lot of enterprise. What do you see as the top challenges they have currently with governance, and the impact it could have on the business?
Yeah, great question. Yeah, I think the biggest challenge, I think in many places, is they know they have a lot of like really valuable and useful data in the company, but it's so complex to manage the policies on it, to manage access and quality and make sure everything's okay, that many people in the company don't actually get to use it. So in some sense, you build this great like data product already, but people can't use it. So they would love to figure out ways to accelerate those workflows while remaining secure, of course. And there are lots of ideas there, everywhere from automatic tagging or lineage tracking that can help you more quickly classify data, to things like request for access workflows, or masking of data, so you see all the non-sensitive parts, and then later you can ask for access to the sensitive parts. So there are many ways to address this, but this is what we see.
What is changing now specifically? Do you see any new requirements based or challenges around Gen AI integration?
Yeah, great question. Yeah, definitely. Gen AI is changing things up. Basically, companies are sitting on this really interesting text data. It could be human generated stuff like comments or feedback from people, but it could even be machine generated, things like logs, and they're trying to figure out how to best use this. And there are some unique challenges with Gen AI. One of the challenges is if you're going to do model training, the model might essentially memorize some of the data. You can't really tell. So if you train it on data that has, say, someone's home address or something, you might be able to then ask the model and get that PII out of it. So there's a lot of interest in masking, redacting at the text level before you train on it to find sensitive stuff. There's interest in using AI to analyze text data. So you've got a big text data set with millions of records, and you want to ask, which of them look like spam, so I shouldn't include them, or which of them have someone's address, can you recognize it? So there's a lot of interest in actually using Gen AI to clean up data to then feed into Gen AI apps, whether it's through model training or retrieval. Both cases you need to clean it up. At Databricks, one of the things we've built for that is the AI functions in SQL, which let you call a language model from SQL efficiently on a batch data set to do things like filter records. And we're also building a whole family of kind of standard function for common things like entity extraction or sentiment analysis and so on, where we'll maintain them. We'll create the prompts and the models, and you just call them. And we think that will help a lot with this. So I'd say these are the new things beyond all the traditional things like purpose of use, geographic location and so on. It's this thing about, when you use the data, maybe whether you're using it in RAG or in model training, you want to make sure that the stuff the model is seeing is, isn't restricted in some way, but you still want it to learn from it.
And so what about using Gen AI directly in the engine itself? Like Databricks made a major acquisition last year with Mosaic ML. How is it going to be infused within the governance and Unity catalog?
Yeah, great question. Yeah, there are a few pieces. So one of them is automatic data tagging. So we're doing more and more to help people tag data and set policies on it as it comes in based on analyzing it. And I think this is going to become one of these sets of built-in AI functions that can tag stuff where they will keep getting better over time. Another interesting piece that I think is helping every user already is basically the assistants in the UI. So everyone's used assistant for for writing code and writing SQL or for debugging code, but you could also use it to help you understand and debug policies for governance. And I think that would be really interesting. There are already some automated tools that can track, like what are all the downstream assets created from this, or what are all the columns derived from this column, and can show you that on a picture. But if you had basically a model you could chat with, that you can then ask questions about it or tell it, okay, what do I have to change to get this outcome, I think it would help. So yeah, these are the two big ones with governance specifically.
Yeah, and because we see a lot of players out there, and they are talking about governance and data and maybe AI and Gen AI. Why do you think Databricks is so uniquely positioned to overcome all the Gen AI challenges and governance?
Yeah, I mean, I think ultimately, companies and users want a unified platform to do this stuff. And I think Databricks bet from the beginning of the company that data and AI workloads would become more and more unified. That it's actually possible to create like a single engine that can handle all of them, a single data store, which is Delta Lake, and a single governance model that spans them. So I think really the simplicity of the unified platform, where like you can set policies on some source data, you can track what it's propagating into, and then you can affect everything downstream, including AI applications like in the product, or even AI applications that like talk to it to serve data. That's the thing that's really going to be powerful. And then I think another aspect of Gen AI that's really interesting is as we see, basically as you see people use the data through many applications, again, on the same platform, you can actually see like, hey, this data is being used for machine learning here. It's being used for like, fraud detection, streaming use cases there, and so on. You also have an opportunity to learn more about it and to make it better for those use cases, like to, either to say, wait, this is actually being used in the wrong way, or to make things like search in the product better, or to make the table layout better for those use cases, or to do caches and indexes on top. So I think this is another way that AI will help. AI itself benefits from the unified platform, basically. But yeah, I do think the big one, when we talk to companies, they just say, look, I just want an easy way to track stuff across everything. And we can offer that. And in fact, with Query Federation that we launched last year, we can even offer it for other data stores. You can set those up in Databricks as external data stores, and you can get this, sort of single place to work with everything.
Yeah, and then it's quite amazing to see, like you would see the model which is being trained and up to, and you have all the chains. So the data is coming from the source, you do the transformation, you train that like that, and then you have the model deployed.
Yeah, and then you get the data back from it, and then you can join it with, like for example, you had these chats with the user, but then did the user churn or something? That's a different table. Wouldn't it be nice if they were in the same platform so you could just join them? So that's exactly what we think. We do think AI and data work, extremely closely together. And, everyone, I work a lot with the AI research team here. And, I would say like more than half of what they do is looking at data sets and, creating data sets, looking at them, figuring out how did this affect this outcome. So I think everyone else will do that too.
And I believe that was a great introduction, because now we're talking about the data intelligence platform. And can you tell us more about it and what this is mean?
Yeah, for sure. So basically, with generative AI, we think that the data platform, the concept of a data platform, is going to change, and in particular, and that's why we've actually sort of branded the company around data intelligence platform, which is this sort of bigger bigger term above Lakehouse, where Lakehouse is one technology used within it, but data intelligence platform also adds a number of AI technologies. The biggest thing, what does data intelligence mean, right? Is it like just data and intelligence put together? No, it's actually, what we mean is that the platform can learn the semantics of your data based on the contents of it and how it's being used, and then it can make it easier for you to work with that data. So for example, in many companies, one of the biggest problems that internal users have is they have a question, they don't even know what data, what tables to look in to ask about it, and then they don't know how to pose that question to the system and get back a reliable answer. That's regardless of how fast your data platform is, regardless of how scalable it is, regardless of how nice the UI looks, you still have that problem. And with generative AI, we finally have a chance to sort of understand how the data is being used and what it means, and to assist users with getting to the right answers quickly. Same thing with debugging errors, same thing with preventing errors by telling you're doing something different from everyone else who tried to compute this metric, and so on. And then not only can we do that for the data platform users, but when you build applications on top, if you're building your own internal Gen AI app, that thing's going to need to understand the semantics of your data too, to say things about it. And we can feed that, everything we learned into that so that it can ask questions. So that's it in a nutshell. That's what data intelligence is. It's about the data platform actually understanding your data from seeing both its content and how it's used. And we think everyone's going to need this because it's such a huge problem with data platforms alone that you got all this stuff in there, but people don't know how to use it.
So you mentioned Gen AI to help around governance and, for example, searching data and finding assets. What about the rest of the platform? How do you think it's going to help all Databricks users? And I know we have data scientists, but also data engineers and even SQL analysts running workflows on Databricks. How is Gen AI going to help them?
Yeah, so I think in Databricks, I think a lot of things will just get easier. Like anytime, for example, one of the main use cases of AI assistants now is anytime you run into some error, there's this button that comes up if you have AI features turned on that says diagnose error, and it can give you, really good hints to fix the problem, or in many cases it will just fix it for you, and it'll tell you what to run. So that's huge. That saves a lot of time. You can do this in interactive use in the SQL editor or notebook. You can also imagine doing this, when your production job fails and you have to wake up in the middle of the night to fix it. It would be nice to accelerate this process. So I think this is one piece. Search and discovery is another piece. And I think over time, we're going to get to more and more sort of low-code interfaces. Like you'll be able to build a dashboard just by typing some stuff. In fact, we already have something like that in the new Lakeview dashboards. You'll be able to share it with your friend and help them ask certain questions about it, just in natural language. So we want to enable data teams to build that kind of application too.
In your opinion, what will be a data engineer or data scientist job like in few years? Are they going to disappear?
No, I think the jobs will still be around. It's a great question because everyone looks at this code generation stuff and thinks, wow, it's so good. And then with data intelligence, what if, it already knows what all the data, where all it is and what it means and so on. But I think they'll still be around, but they'll be working on somewhat harder problems, harder conceptual and business problems. And one way I think to convince yourself of this is there are some questions, some data science or data questions that you can't answer, say, unless you talk to the CFO of the company. For example, if I ask something about some kind of, churn metric or something like that, you need to figure out what do they consider. You can't answer the question unless you talk to the head of legal, or unless you know something about the strategy or whatever. So there are some, basically, there are some questions that are just very hard, and you need to create a strategy. You need to do something about it. Even something as simple as like we launched a new product, we want to know how it's doing. Unless you know a lot about the business and the goals for that product, it's hard to tell. What if people bought it but then they're not using it after and they're gonna drop? What if actually it was free and everyone should be using it, but they aren't because they don't know about it. You just can't answer that by looking at the data alone. So I think data scientists will still be needed to connect the business questions to meaningful analysis, but their job will just be much less sort of in the weeds coding stuff and more hopefully more fun actually answering the questions.
Yeah, they will be able to do much more. All right, awesome. Thank you so much for your time, Matei. We have one last question. So we need to reach 3,000 subscribers on the YouTube channel. And that's an important milestone for us. Can you ask the viewer to subscribe to the YouTube channel?
Yeah, please like and subscribe. It's a great channel, really awesome content here.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Matei.